Hello, my name's Sara Charlesworth. I'm a professor at the School of Management at RMIT University, and I sit within the Centre for Sustainable Organisations and Work.
And can you tell us a bit about your project?
Yes, so the project I was involved with was what was known as the Independent Insecure Work Inquiry that was set up by the peak union body in Australia, the Australian Council of Trade Unions. And the inquiry was in response to growing concern, not only within the union movement, but within the community, about what was seen to be the rise of insecure work, and not only casual work, which has been a feature of the Australian labour market for decades, but also the proliferation of other forms of employment, which was seen to make workers very vulnerable in terms of the employment relationship. So the Insecure Work Inquiry was made up with a panel of 4 people. It was chaired by a former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, Brian Howe. It had a former Deputy Commissioner of our Australian Industrial Relations Commission. There was myself as an academic representative, and also a community activist. And the 4 of us were involved in going to 22 different locations across Australia. We had hearings of between 1 to 2 days, and people came forward and provided evidence in their own way, in their own form, about their experience or their concern about insecure work. There was an enormous amount of evidence we gathered. We also had over 500 written submissions as well. And what I suppose came out of it was the enormity of the problem of insecure work, and indeed of its different facets. And so we decided to, if you like, divide the problem into various domains, and we looked distinctly at labour regulation, so looked at improvements around labour regulation, but we also deliberately looked at issues of social protection, and in particular the links between social protection and labour regulation. In Australia there's often been, these have been very much siloed, and we decided that they needed to be better linked, because particularly with low-wage workers, which a lot of insecure workers are, they face problems both within the welfare regime as well as the employment regime.
So we've been talking about the multidimensional model for unacceptable forms of work. How do you find it applicable in your line of work?
Well, when I read it, I rather wished that we'd had it at the get-go for the inquiry. I think as it's presented, it's both a diagnostic tool, and I think a very rich diagnostic tool. It would have allowed us, I think, to gather information more systematically. At times the panel, and indeed the secretariat that was supporting the work of the panel, we were just overwhelmed by the enormity of insecure work, and I think that the multidimensional model gives one a language about where to place it across dimensions of unacceptability, and also the indicators that sit within the model are incredibly useful. They're all outcomes focused, so one doesn't get caught up, one doesn't start, if you like, if you think about employment regulation, with the problem of employment regulation per se. It would allow us to focus much more clearly on the outcomes. And I think, because this was a bit of a point of debate on the panel, bring in more clearly the aspects of both social context and social location. And this is particularly important in terms of women's work, which from my perspective perhaps didn't come, the distinctive labour markets that men and women find themselves in didn't come through as clearly through our analysis of the problem as it might have done had we had at our disposal a multidimensional model.